currently Earth. It was March 30th in the year 1775 that King George endorses New England's Restraining Act. Hoping to keep New England colonies dependent on the British, King George III formally endorses the New England Restraining Act on March 30th in 1775. The New England Restraining Act required New England colonies to trade exclusively with Great Britain as of July 1st. An additional rule would come into effect on July 20th, banning colonists from fishing in the North Atlantic. The British Prime Minister Frederick Lord North introduced the Restraining Act and the conciliatory proposition to Parliament on the same day. The conciliatory proposition promised that no colony that met its share of imperial defenses and paid royal officials salaries of their own accord would be taxed. The act conceded to the colonists, demanded that they be allowed to provide the crown with the needed funds on a voluntary basis. In other words, Parliament would ask for money through requisitions, not demand it through taxes. The Restraining Act was meant to appease parliamentary hardliners who would otherwise have impeded passage of the pacifying proposition. Unfortunately for North and prospects for peace, he had already sent General Thomas Gage orders to march on Concord, Massachusetts, to destroy the armament stockpiled in the town and take Patriot leaders John Hancock and Samuel Adams into custody. The orders were given in January of 1775 and arrived in Boston before the conciliatory proposition. Thus, on April 18th, 700 redcoats marched towards Concord Bridge. This military action led to the Revolutionary War, the birth of our nation as a new nation, the temporary downfall of Lord North, and the near abdication of King George III. The Treaty of Paris, marking the conflict's end, guaranteed New Englanders the right to fish off Newfoundland, the right denied them by New England Restraining Act. It was March 30th in the year 1870 that the 15th Amendment was adopted. Following its ratification by the requisite 3/4 of the states, the 15th Amendment, granting African American men the right to vote, is formally adopted into the U.S. Constitution. Passed by Congress the year before, the amendment reads, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on the account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." One day after it was adopted, Thomas Peterson Mundy of Perth Amboy, New Jersey, became the first African American to vote under the authority of the 15th Amendment. In 1867, the Republican-dominated Congress passed the first Reconstruction Act over President Andrew Johnson, our nation's 17th president, veto, dividing the South into 5 military districts and outlining how new governments based on universal manhood suffrage were to be established. With the adoption of the 15th Amendment in 1870, a politically mobilized African American community joined with white allies in southern states to elect the Republican Party to power, which brought about radical changes across the South. By late 1870, all the former Confederate states had been readmitted to the Union, and most were controlled by the Republican Party, thanks to the support of African American voters. In the same year, Hiram Rhodes Rebels, a Republican from Natchez, Mississippi, became the first African American ever to sit in Congress. Although African American Republicans never obtained political office in proportion to their overwhelming electoral majority, Rebels and a dozen other African American men served in Congress during Reconstruction. More than 600 served in state legislatures, and many more held local offices. However, in the late 1870s, the Southern Republican Party vanished with the end of Reconstruction, and the Southern state governments effectively nullified the 14th and 15th Amendments, stripping Southern African Americans of the right to vote. It would be nearly a century before the nation would again attempt to establish equal rights for African Americans in the South. It was March 30th in the year 1955 that James Wong Howe becomes the first Asian American to win an Academy Award. Noted for his innovative use of wide-angle shots, low-key lighting, and deep focus, Cinematographer James Wong Howe becomes the first Asian American to win an Academy Award on March 30th in 1955. Receiving the Oscar for Best Cinematography for The Rose Tattoo starring Anna Magnani and Burt Lancaster, Howe had a knack for making old stars young, plump stars thin, and ordinary faces beautiful, as he once said according to the Smithsonian. Born in China in 1899 and immigrating to America at age 5, Howe got his Hollywood start as an assistant to Cecil B. DeMille. Considered one of the most influential cinematographers of all time, over his 6-decade career, he was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, winning twice. He also took home the Best Cinematography Award for HUD in 1963. Married in 1937 to writer Sonora Babb, who was white, the couple's interracial marriage wasn't recognized until the 1949 end of California's anti-miscegenation law, according to Variety. Even then, Wong, Howe, and Babb couldn't go public, since mixed-race marriage violated the studio's morals clause. Post-World War II, Howe was investigated by the House of Un-American Activities Committee and was graylisted. Although the graylisting caused him to lose out on work in the 1940s and early 1950s, he still earned credits on more than 130 films, including The Thin Man, Picnic, Funny Lady, and Yankee Doodle Dandy, working with legendary stars such as Ronald Reagan, Humphrey Bogart, Cary Grant, Sidney Poitier, Paul Newman, and Barbra Streisand, among others. Audio file can be verified on history.com.